Alana Jaylo,
Yes.
in the dog days of summer,
Right.
which we have just entered, I believe,
Yeah.
we have made rigatoni.
Last night.
How did that go?
It was really good. The rigatoni was easy to work with. You handled the sauce, if I'm not correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. I thought it tasted so good. With the mushrooms, the olives, the onions, and then the tomato sauce. I think we used like 2 cans of tomato sauce. Is that right?
We used a
Smaller can.
Well, what had happened was you had a regular size can.
I did.
And then
I had the small. They gave me smaller cans from
Walmart
the delivery.
gave you 2 like really small cans, so I used those.
Yeah.
And then I put a little bit of the pasta water when it was done cooking inside the sauce.
Right. It was really good.
I thought it turned out well too. And we just finished having leftovers.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
I was just commenting to you that I'm really excited about getting back into cooking on the stove and eventually in the oven.
Because it's been a while since you've had a place just to
Yes,
cook.
it has been a long time. And I'm just excited. I didn't do a whole lot of cooking last week or this week or today rather, because I was just cooking the leftovers in the pot that we had. But I'm getting a little more, little by little more confident around the stove.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just takes like doing it more times, and as you know, I do like eggs.
And I hate them.
And I think that I don't think that you had good eggs, but that's a different conversation. And just something as simple as boiling eggs, because I like boiled eggs, and I used to do that all the time when I was making potato salad, when I had a recipe for it. And I'm just excited to do that. I know it sounds kind of corny, but I haven't done it in years.
Whatever turns you on in the kitchen, I think, is usually a good thing.
It is. I mean, even when I hear meat sizzling or pasta sizzling or something sizzling and bubbling on the stove, because I know I'm doing something good.
Yeah.
I'm doing something right.
I would imagine it can be frustrating cooking in front of sighted roommates, which is why I feel fortunate that I haven't had any sighted roommates since, I believe, early 2006.
Wow.
And I don't plan to go back to that anytime soon.
Right.
And noticeably, my skills in the kitchen have gotten a lot better since then.
Right. I had my own apartment in 2006, but because the school offered really good food in the cafeteria, I wasn't always home. Oh. And I will admit, my school's cafeteria had really good food because they had a catering company working for them.
But you paid for that in your...
I did pay for it, yes. I did pay for it because they gave me a card, and I could put... I could have like a meal plan on it, and I did pay for it.
That sounds really good.
It was really good.
I mean, I didn't like cooking at all in high school, and what few college classes I tried to attend, failed at going to.
Right.
So I could only imagine. Babe,
yes.
We watched some really interesting stuff yesterday. Do we want to start with DS9?
Yes, absolutely.
The first episode we watched on Saturday was when Worf's brother, Captain Kern, comes to the station and asks for Worf to kill him.
Not to be confused with Captain Kirk, because that's from
a different guy from
different
the original
guy.
show.
Yeah, I was very confused at that.
Why?
Because I didn't know much about the Klingons and what's culturally appropriate for them. What they did in their culture, and what was it tradition that they called it? Mokhtavor?
Something like that. I always get Klingon names wrong, so I'm not even
going to... that.
I don't think that's the correct pronunciation, but I know. Klingon names are really hard to get right.
Yeah.
So, Worf comes from the House of Moog.
Yes.
And in Next Generation, it comes out that his father was sort of dishonored, and I don't remember the specifics. I'm sure people are going crazy, but it wasn't the most respected house. But Worf does something and he restores the respect of the house. However, he goes to Deep Space Nine, and when we first see him, he's kind of turning against the Klingon Empire because he finds out what the Klingons are up to, and he gives the information to Captain Sisko and the Federation. And a lot of people see that as a betrayal of the Empire. So he brings dishonor upon the House of Moog. And Klingons are very into honor.
Yes. Yes, they are. Very much.
So Kurn comes to the station. He doesn't feel honored. I mean, he was, feared by his enemies, respected by his friends, and now none of that.
None of that, yeah. He lost he pretty much lost his identity as a Klingon.
And it's dishonorable for a Klingon to kill themselves. However, they can get a relative to do it in a specific ceremony.
And that's what I didn't understand. I'm like, why is Worf asking Kurn, or why is Kurn asking Worf to kill him?
Because he had no honor, thanks to Worf. And Worf is the older brother.
Yes.
As the episode progressed, what were your thoughts?
I didn't know what to think about Kurn, and I didn't know what to think about Worf. I think that Worf, because in the middle of the episode, Worf is getting ready to kill his brother, and I would imagine that he doesn't want to do that. But he stabs him anyway, right?
He does.
He stabs him
near the beginning of the episode.
I'm sorry, near the beginning of the episode, and the people on DS9 find
Dax and Odo
walk in
after he was stabbed, and Dax is transported to sickbay with Captain Kurn.
Right. And let's and Commander, I guess he's Captain now, right? Captain Sisko?
Yes.
Captain Sisko is not happy.
Oh, he is pissed.
Yeah. For lack of a better term. He's very, very upset, and he wants, he doesn't care about the and Dax knows more about it because Curzon is her host. Correct?
Curzon is a former host.
Curzon is her former host, and he knew about the Klingons.
He's respected among the Klingons.
Yeah.
I believe, and there's so much lore with Star Trek that it's hard to keep everything in track, but if memory serves correctly, he was the Klingon ambassador from the Federation.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So, and he just didn't care. I mean, Captain Sisko pretty much had enough, and Dax really wanted to help Worf because he was struggling with this. And then she says something I thought was really interesting. She said, why don't you kill him without killing him?
But before then, we state that Worf goes to Odo.
Yep.
And they don't like each other.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have a begrudging respect for each other, but they don't like each other.
Right, okay.
Is a feeling I get.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think that changes in the series. Mm-hmm. And he says, listen, my brother ain't going to join Starfleet, but you run Bajoran security.
Yeah.
Can I have my brother join your staff?
Right.
And I love what Odo says. He's looking at the record and he's basically like, does your brother know how to use a stun setting on a weapon?
Oh, yeah.
Because one thing you got to know about Odo, his deputies carry weapons, but Odo doesn't even carry a phaser.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in carrying weapons.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he's very sensitive to that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And he hires Kurn.
Yep.
Kurn gets himself injured near the end of the first day.
And he says he hates the uniform.
Yes.
She's like, I can't accept that I am a part of Bajoran security, but I don't like this uniform. It's uncomfortable. And that was kind of like, I hate this uniform.
So let's fast forward to what's happening with Dax when she says that statement to Worf. Mm-hmm. I like the way this episode ended, and I have issues with it at the same time.
I do too.
Tell me your thoughts first.
Well, I don't know that erasing his memory would solve the problem. Because remember at the end, Dr. Bashir goes in and erases all his memories of being in Klingon. Mm-hmm. And then, what's that guy's name? Nokra?
I'm always bad with Klingon names. I know that it was a friend of their father.
Right, and so he takes him under his wing and convinces him that that's his father, that he is really his father. I don't know that changes the problem. I have an issue with that.
Well, I mean, I like it because they resolve things.
They do in their own way, but
and bizarrely enough, Deep Space Nine, why I love the show, and one of the things I love about it is so many things are left gray.
Yeah.
It is nice that they do occasionally resolve things.
Yeah.
Even though the rest of Star Trek is guilty of doing that too often, in my opinion. But it is a big ethical violation. Julian Bashir is a Starfleet medical officer.
Yes.
And he's erasing a person's memory without their consent.
Right. He pretty much put him under.
On one hand, that's kind of cool because it shows that they're rebellious.
Right.
And they're going against the grain. On the other hand, it is
It's very unethical, yeah.
So something you already know I'm guilty about is rewriting things in my own head.
Uh-huh. Yes.
What I would have liked to have seen happen is they send Kern off on a suicide mission. For example, there was the B plot in the episode was the thing with the mines that were exploding that the Klingons put out right outside of Bajoran space. And at one point, Kern and Worf go on the Klingon ship to get some info. I would have liked to have seen them send Kern on that ship, and Kern gets killed in battle, so he dies an honorable death. But that's just my take.
Okay, explain that one more time.
Okay, so you know how they were putting mines right outside of the Bajoran area?
Yeah.
And the reason that they were doing that is if there was a war between the Klingon Empire and the Federation, it would block off the Federation from getting to Bajor.
Uh-huh.
I would have thought it would have been more interesting. You know that ship that they captured and they got the info from?
Right.
It would have been more compelling if they would have put Kern on that ship as a spy.
Huh.
And then he dies in the heat of battle.
Because
if you're a Klingon and you die in battle, you die an honorable death.
Wow.
And you get to swim the Blood River.
The Blood River.
Yes.
Oh, that's why they referenced it.
Mm-hmm.
The River of Blood.
The River of Blood, I'm sorry.
Why would you want to swim the River of Blood? Why would a Klingon want to do that?
It's part of the Klingon tradition, babe.
Okay, then.
They're very interesting.
They sound like barbarians, but anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, that was an interesting ending. But I also made an observation that you didn't pick up until I said something.
Go ahead. This was a good one, by the way.
So there was a very interesting, to me anyway, similarity between the old Jake Sisko versus Captain Kern. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, what it sounds like to me is that the man who played old Jake also played Captain Kern because of the voice.
They sounded very similar. Old Jake in the Visitor versus Captain Kern, their voices sounded almost identical.
I think they may have used the same guy.
And I've seen both episodes, obviously, multiple times. I've always thought that Kern sounded familiar, but I could never place it. But you pointed that out to me yesterday.
Yeah, and yes. And I think it might be.
Your observation is an honorable one.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's correct because I didn't bother checking Wikipedia, but it sounds like it could be the case.
Yeah, I tend to be very observant with voices. Very observant with certain little details.
You're also really good at with names, and I'm horrible with that type of stuff. Yeah. Oftentimes, I'll show you a movie that I've seen like 50 times, and you'll be like, "What's that character's name?" And I'll tell you the name of the actor, not the character, because that's the way I think about them.
Yeah, and I'm more like the name of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once I get a name of a character in my head, it doesn't really leave my head unless I forget it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm observant that way, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. I think so.
I am not a fan of most of the Ferengi episodes.
Right. This one was interesting, though.
We watched Bar Association.
Yes. It's very interesting.
And I was kind of wondering if you would like it, because there's a lot of, like, lefty perspective in it. There is in most of Star Trek. Star Trek definitely leans left. But there's a lot of it in this episode.
Well, so I am opposed to unions. But at the same time, However, I should say, at the same time, it is interesting to see a Ferengi leading a rebellion against another Ferengi, his own brother.
Would you like to elaborate on the episode a little bit?
Yes. So, I almost said war. I'm talking about an episode. So, Quark obviously has this bar, his establishment. He's had it for a while, but he doesn't pay the staff. He makes the staff work overtime over the time that they should be working, and he doesn't give them a lot of pay. He doesn't give them a raise. And
or paid sick leave.
He doesn't give them paid sick leave, and he just wants them to work all the time because he's concerned with profits. All he cares about is money. All he cares about is profits, to his detriment. And his brother Rom, which it's kind of interesting to see that, you know, Rom, it seems like he's beginning to gain a backbone. His brother Rom isn't happy. All of them aren't happy, and they decide. Somebody suggest who was the one that suggested? I think it was Dr. Bashir.
Yeah, this comes to a head.
Yes.
Because Rom has this bad ear infection that he doesn't get treated because
right.
he's always working for his brother. And one day he faints at Quark's.
Yep.
We fast forward. He's getting treated in sick bay, and he has this interesting discussion with Dr. Bashir about how he might not be able to come back tomorrow to get a checkup.
Mm-hmm.
And Bashir says, well, it sounds to me like what you people need is a union. And Rom is like, but us Ferengis always wanted to exploit people, you know.
Right.
And Bashir's just like, well, I don't see you exploiting anybody.
Right.
So it kind of inspires this whole protest.
Right. And I am very opposed to unions.
I think they're a mixed bag. They've definitely done some things that I disagree with, but they've done a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason why I oppose unions is because it seems like the whole concept in general, it's almost like we take care of our own. If you're not a part of us, we don't take care of you. It's like, it's kind of like a mob mentality. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't want to get too far into.
But I don't want to get too far into this.
But what I will say is, a lot of people credit unions. Pardon the pun. A lot of historians credit unions with the 5-day work week. Mm. So their argument is, before we had unions, we had less worker rights, and people would be exploited with these 7-day work weeks. Mm. And they would be working all day long, and people would be worked until they died. Mm. There's more to the story than that, but I think to say they're all bad is mischaracterizing unions. But we don't have to go there right now.
Right. Okay.
But back to the episode.
So yeah, they rebel against Quark and start this union. I thought it was kind of interesting, actually, that Rom was leading this, because I didn't think he was going to do that, honestly.
Rom doesn't seem like he has a big backbone.
But he shows his backbone in this episode. Mm-hmm. And so, do you want to fast forward to and talk about the result of this union?
Okay, so Commissioner Brent comes to the station. And people who know Star Trek know who Brent is. Or who know Deep Space Nine should know him.
And I'm not familiar with him.
He is also the Jeffrey, I forget his last name. The guy who plays Brent also plays Wei-Yun, who you haven't met yet.
No.
But Wei-Yun's a very interesting character. We'll get to him.
Wei-Yun is in what?
Is also in Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Really?
Yes.
So he plays two characters?
He plays multiple characters, but those are the ones that I remember him best as.
Okay.
He might have been in some episodes that you haven't seen, but Wei-Yun is definitely coming up in your world.
In my world? Okay.
But before we get to Wei-Yun, let's get back to Brent.
Okay.
Commissioner Brent from the Ferengi, was it the Ferengi Commerce Association? It was something like that.
The FCA, yeah.
The FCA.
Yeah.
Yeah. He comes to the station and he says, listen, Quark, you need our help. We can't let this thing take hold in the Ferengi Empire, or Ferenginar is going to really suffer.
Yeah.
So Quark tries to reason with the Union. Brent comes in, you know.
Yeah.
He tells everybody, y'all got to get back to work. Rom gives a speech. People are holding strong. Quark talks with Rom. He goes back to Brent. He says, it doesn't look like my brother's going to cave. Brent says, we can't harm Rom because that'll just make him a martyr. And so they beat up Quark. Quark is in sickbay. Rom is there, and he says, listen, the Union can't win officially. But if you agree to disband the Union, then I will install everything you want. There's more to it than that.
Right. I'll give you what you want.
But on paper, I can't do it. You guys have to shut down immediately, and it's got to look at least like I won for the Ferengi to take this seriously. What did you think of that? And then there's the thing at the end, which is great, and kind of comes up later.
It was very interesting. It was kind of interesting how they came to this deal, because I didn't think that Quark was going to go along with it, or cooperate with Rom, because it seemed to me in the beginning that he would not cooperate with anybody.
He didn't want to, but at the same point, you got to remember he's being pressured on all sides.
Right.
Obviously, the Ferengis are pressuring them, but the Federation also says, listen, dude, we pay your rent, and we've been a very good landlord. If you want that to continue, you got to take care of this quickly.
Yeah. Right.
What did you think of the last scene?
I thought that was so funny. He was like, "Oh, by the way, I quit." so Rom, in the effort to kind of do something good for himself, he quits Quarks, and he's like, "Oh, so I guess I'm not going to see you around anymore." No, actually, you are going to see me around because I'm going to be a paying customer.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Now get me my snail juice." Brother. And I'm like, that's a good Rom.
Yes.
He has a backbone. He may not be the smartest Ferengi in the world, but he has a backbone now.
I enjoy this episode. Again, the
funny.
The Ferengi episodes are not my favorite, but I enjoy it, and it also kind of sets up some stuff that will come up later in the series too. But I don't want to get into that too much.
When it comes to the Ferengis?
Not really. More with Rom's storyline.
Really?
Yes, but you'll see it later on.
Okay.
Alana.
Yes.
You like the character of Rom.
I kind of do. He's kind of a likable character.
He tries his best.
And
I think Quark also tries his best, but Quark is a little bit more conniving.
Is Rom older than Quark? Is he the older brother?
Quark is the older one.
Quark is the older one, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your fondness for Rom extends to slug juice.
Snail juice?
Snail juice, I'm sorry.
What about snail juice?
Do you like snail juice?
I never had snail juice. I never will have snail juice. I have felt a snail before.
Right, but because our anniversary is coming up, and I was thinking of getting you a chilled bottle of snail juice.
No, I think Pog is good enough.
Okay.
Pog, you know what Pog is, right?
I know the Pog game that they used to have back.
No, Pog juice. You know what that is, right?
No.
Passion orange guava.
Oh, I should have known that. I did not realize that Pog stood for that, though.
Yes, and then there's also fruit punch, which is one of my favorites.
Fruit punch is good.
Fruit punch.
What about fruit punch spiked with snail juice? No?
Well,
We'll talk about it later.
Snail juice sounds really gross.
It does.
It sounds like something somebody from another planet would drink.
The Ferengis are into some weird stuff. They eat worms. They often have women chew their food up for them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just remember that if you're gonna give me something with chicken in it, make sure it has extra yummick sauce.
Right.
Whatever yummick sauce is. They have some weird names for food.
They do.
Synthahol.
What synthahol is, it's supposed to taste like an alcoholic beverage, but it has no real alcohol.
Right.
Yeah.
It just tastes like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Synthahol.
Synthahol.
Yeah, but I don't know. No snail juice, no yummick sauce. Nothing like that. Ugh.
Moving on from Star Trek, we finally had our Jimmy Stewart night.
It was great.
Yes. We started off with Harvey. First of all, I wanted to do this because you had basically only known Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, and I knew he did other stuff, but I wasn't familiar.
And I feel that most people of our generation feel the same way about that. That's the only film they know of his. And I think that's unfortunate because he has made some really interesting films. So tell me your thoughts on Harvey.
I thought it was really cute, actually. I thought it was really entertaining. I just thought there were so many funny things about it.
Would you like to give an overview of the film? Jaylo-Mae.
Okay.
Jaylo-Mae.
Jaylo-Mae. So there's a man named Elwood P. Dowd?
Yes.
Dowd. And he's played by Jimmy Stewart. Very interesting guy. You find out pretty quickly that he has a friend that you can't see. His name is Harvey, and he's a 6.5 feet tall rabbit. Big white rabbit. And meanwhile, you have his sister, Mrs. Vida Simmons, and her daughter, Myrtle May. And, they live in the house together. They seem really, really old back then, and this was like in the 50s.
Especially Vida.
Yeah, 1950.
Is when the film came out.
Yeah, she just seems like an old grandma.
And it's a house that was inherited from the mom. And
this was our home.
Elmore got it.
Elwood
got it.
Yes.
Elwood. See, I am horrible with names.
Yeah.
Keep going.
That's why you have me around.
That's right.
So it's pretty clear that he is talking to somebody, someone you can't see. And even the people at his favorite bar notice it.
But for the most part, they
accept it because they're like, oh, okay, he's just Elwood, That's how he is. And then, so Mrs. Simmons has a party, and she invites all these guests over. Their aunt comes over. Their aunt hasn't seen Elwood in a long time, and she's afraid. Oh no, he's going to talk to the guests, and then he's going to introduce him to Harvey and all that. Well, everything comes to a head when she calls the judge, and she conspires to put him in a home, in a mental institution. So she goes in there, and did she tell the judge her secret, or was it a doctor?
She told the judge that she wanted to put him in. The judge said
no, not that one. No,
I'm telling you.
Okay.
And then she goes to the mental institution, and she has a talk with the doctor.
Okay, so she goes to the mental institution, and
But the judge knew that she was going there.
Yes, she goes to the mental institution. Elwood doesn't know. He's in the car with his things, and she's going to go and get his things. Well, she admits to the doctor her secret that she also sees a rabbit. The rabbit. Sometimes. And they think that she's crazy, so they have her committed. I think they have her committed in there for a night. Or what
it's implied that it's implied. Like an afternoon.
An afternoon, right? The movie seems longer than that. It's implied that she's in there for an afternoon. And she gets home, she gets out of there, she gets home, and she's crying so hard to her daughter, Myrtle May. And some weird things happen, like Myrtle May meets with one of the doctors from the hospital, one of the workers from the hospital.
One of the workers.
Makes him a sandwich. Would you like something on rye? How about egg and onion? It was so funny, And, he asked her, oh, are you married or whatever he says. And it was very weird. So they end up getting together, and then the one nurse and the doctor, it's implied that they're together. Explain about the cab driver, because I think that's kind of an interesting point to the story.
So.
And Dr. Chumley, yeah.
Near the end of the movie, Dr. Chumley is the dude who runs the institution. Mm-hmm. He goes and finds Elmore. We don't see this on camera, but it's talked about. And him and Elmore are hanging out with Harvey, and Dr. Chumley goes away with Harvey. I'm going to skip a few things, but basically there's a scene where Elwood, thank you, and Chumley are in Chumley's office, and Chumley starts talking about, listen, I honestly, I thought you were crazy. I didn't think Harvey was real, but after the last few hours, he's real. Mm-hmm. He starts to explain to him what's going on. The camera cuts away from them, but in my opinion, they're coming up with a plan, and they assume that Harvey is listening in. Mm-hmm. I don't know that for sure, but that's the implication. Okay, he comes out, some stuff happens, and the doctor says, listen, dude, I can inject you with this stuff, and you'll stop seeing Harvey.
You'll snap back into reality. And he talked to Mrs. Simmons about it.
I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Yes.
And, you know, Elwood agrees to do that for his sister and Myrtle-Mae.
And Myrtle-Mae,
I
yes.
just love when she says that.
Myrtle-Mae, yes.
So he goes in, they have to prepare some stuff. While he's in the office, the cab driver who drove Myrtle-Mae, her mom, and the judge to the mental institution comes in asking for his fare. Okay. Elwood's sister looks through her purse. She can't find any money to pay the fare.
She can't find her coin purse, yep.
Right. Neither can the judge.
Yep.
So she has to go in. They didn't do the thing yet. She talks to Elwood, and she's like, listen, dude, we need some of your money, bro.
It's paraphrasing. She didn't call him dude.
And she didn't say, bro, we need some money. So he comes up, he hooks him up, and he's really nice to the cab driver. He goes back in. The cab driver's like, oh, they're so nice when they come here. But, you know, they turn into fucking assholes afterwards.
Okay, he did not say that.
It was implied.
That's Rick's
I'm
improvisation.
But
No, he didn't say that. He just said, oh, you know, they get really mean and they're like yelling at me and they're screaming at me and all this other stuff. And then and I think this is really interesting. I think it's worth noting that Mrs. Simmons, I thought this was hilarious. She's going to the doctor's office or going to the door where they're supposed to inject him. And he's like, doctor, please don't inject him with it. Like, oh, we're just about to do it. No, I don't want him to be I don't want him to be like that. I don't want him to be a normal person, whatever she says.
She stops him.
Like, don't do that. And so they decide not to inject Elwood.
I thought it was Elmore. Elwood. I'm bad with names.
Elwood. And so she looks into her purse and she's like, oh, wow, I found the coin purse. It must have been here all the time. And then she thinks, Harvey. Yeah.
My theory is, and I talked about the beginning part of it, is that the doctor and Elwood knew that Harvey was listening into the conversation, or they thought that there was a good chance. Before the camera pans away, Elwood explains that Harvey has the ability to turn back time.
Yep.
So what I think happens, and they leave this up to your imagination, but go with me, is that Harvey turned back time, he goes to the cab service and manipulates it to where the cabbie who's most sympathetic to the situation would be sent out to the mental institution. He takes the change purse.
Yeah.
He takes the judge's money.
Yeah.
So it provides the excuse for the cab driver to intervene.
Right. So
and maybe we know that we never see Harvey, but we know that Harvey is waiting outside of the mental institution. So maybe while everybody else is inside, he also cajoles the cab driver into intervening as well.
Interesting.
I don't know that for sure, but that's my
to help his friend Elwood.
Yes.
It's implied. Because when Elwood leaves the institution, there's Harvey waiting outside the gate. Well, it's implied that he is there because the gates start to open.
Yes.
We can only imagine what this rabbit really looks like.
He's 6 foot.
It would have been kind of fun if they had a voice that...
I'm glad that they didn't do that. I feel that most films would cop out and they'd show you Harvey at the end, or you'd hear his voice. And I know that probably a lot of this had to do with special effects were not that good back then, right? But I'm really glad that you never actually see Harvey.
Because it's up to your imagination.
Yes, to decide whether or not you think he's real or not. I really like that they didn't show him.
Yeah, but I think that's what makes this movie so charming and cute is it is very imaginative. It's very creative. Jimmy Stewart was just good in this. And it... oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Our thing fell. Our recorder fell. Go ahead.
Now, you, without giving any names, you explained to me that kind of a personality reminded you of certain people.
One or two people I know.
Yes.
Yes.
And one or two people I know.
What did you think when I said the name that I said?
I actually agree with you. I thought about somebody else too, but I agree with you because this person who shall be nameless is well-meaning, but and in some ways, they're very nice, they're well-meaning, but they're not quite all, they're not quite all there. As far as, I don't know how to explain it. Like their mind is elsewhere.
Yes.
Correct?
I would say that. Yes.
Yes, their mind is elsewhere. So it would be interesting if this person or persons may have acquired a imaginary friend. I just thought it was so funny that he would give people business cards and he would say, "Oh, use the new number, not the old one. That's no good."
The old number right there isn't good. You can use the new number. And like, who puts on an old number on a business card where you also have the new number?
Well, I also think it's really interesting that
Here's my card.
Here's my card. I think is really interesting that he pays so much attention to whoever needs his attention. Like somebody wanted to give him a manicure, or somebody's like, well, somebody was going to give me a bath or something.
And those are the people working at
the people that were working there, and he was paying particular attention to the people around him, and learning about them, and he was complimenting one of the nurses, Miss Kelly, a lot, because he really liked her. He really liked her a lot, and I think because they didn't inject him, his personality may have changed. Because remember when he said that his mom was like, "You have to be oh so smart and oh so pleasant, or so pleasant."
Yes, and
so pleasant, yeah.
Having spent so many years, I'm gonna mess it up. But having spent so many years being oh so smart, I can say that pleasant is definitely better, and that is a bastardized quote from me, because I do that.
In other words,
he was smart for a while. He was cunning, and then he realized that being pleasant got him more satisfaction in life.
Right, and it just seemed he just seemed like a really nice person. Like he really paid attention to the people around him. Like everybody was important to him. Does that?
I would say that's true.
Yeah. He said, well, I was, and he would, I just think it was funny. He would invite people to his house. He's like, oh, we're going to have some friends.
It's going to be very casual.
Would you like,
drop by?
Would you like to come over? And then pretty soon it would be a party, right? And you never see the party. You never see the get together, but it's implied that he wants them to meet Harvey. I just thought it was very charming, and I just think it's a family movie. It's really funny.
You know who the doctor reminds me of?
Who?
And it's not him.
Dr. Chumley?
No, the other doctor. The young dude who's with the nurse?
Yes.
It's not him, and I know because I checked. But he kind of reminds me of a young Leslie Nielsen.
Really?
Yeah. I know you've only seen his later films.
Yeah.
But I am a big fan of the movie Forbidden Planet, which came out, I believe, 6 years after Harvey did.
Really?
And I thought for while rewatching it that maybe that's a young Leslie Nielsen, but I checked and it is not him.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
He just seems like it.
Yeah, they have a similar feel to me.
Similar mannerisms and everything?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
J-Lo.
Yes.
I'm very glad you enjoyed this film.
It was very nice. I really enjoyed it.
Then we watched a movie that I think is actually a really good summer movie. Because when I watch it, it implies heat. It radiates the feel of August weather.
How so?
It just does. It's hard to explain it. I just get the feel that it's a hot August month in this film. And
really?
I'm, of course, talking about the Alfred Hitchcock film, Rear Window.
Yeah, and I didn't... It's too close to me.
Oh, I was trying to get good sound, but go ahead.
I understand.
But not that good. Go ahead.
I wasn't sure what I was going to think about it because, Rear Window obviously is very different than Harvey, and It's a Wonderful Life, obviously. But I actually thought it was really good. It was really well done.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the film?
So, Mr. Jeffries, I don't know what his first name is. But
they call him L.B. Jeffries.
L.B. Jeffries.
They call him Jeff.
They call him Jeff. L.B. Jeffries. L.B. Jeffries is his photographer. He breaks his leg pretty badly, and he's confined to a wheelchair and a rear window. So while he's looking out this rear window, he notices his neighbors, and he kind of gives them funny names like Miss Lonely Hearts.
Or Miss Torso.
Miss Torso. Miss Lonely Hearts is this older lady that drinks a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is she the one with the dog?
No, that's another lady.
Okay. And Miss Torso is the one that's, a young woman. You don't really know much about her, but you see...
A woman about town.
A woman about town. And then you have the newlywed couple, and then you have the guy, Mr. Thorwald, which you find out about in the middle of the movie, and they have this idea that something is really wrong with this guy. Would you like to continue?
So, when the movie starts, we're just going to call him Jeff.
Jeff.
Jeff has been in his apartment for the last 6 weeks, right? Recovering. So he's had plenty of time to look out his window. And he notices that Mr. Thorwald's wife is very, very unhealthy. One day he notices that she's no longer there. I believe it's night, actually.
And his girlfriend is noticing things too.
Right. But she's noticing things because he starts pointing them out. And then she sees him packing this, like, big bag. But he notices for a day he doesn't hear her. He doesn't see Mrs. Thorwald. So he's starting to add things up because the husband is acting really weird, and he is convinced that Mr. Thorwald killed his wife. Continue, Jaylo.
Okay. And so, she starts to notice it. At first she's like, "You're scaring me." And then he's like, "Wait a minute." She's like, she sees this big suitcase, and she's like, "Wait a minute, what's going on here?" So she leaves and calls Jeff the next day and says, "Okay, his name is Mr. Thorwald."
So he calls him later that night.
Yes, she calls him later that night because I think she goes back to she goes to his house, the other guy's house, right?
Yeah, and then I'm assuming she goes to a payphone and calls Jeff from the payphone.
Right. And so this is very odd, and they're able to go into his house because he didn't lock the door, and try to look through his things and see what's going on here. Let's see that.
Well, that's later in the film. What happens is she goes into the house first and leaves a note that Jeff wrote.
Right, exactly.
And at one point, there's a dog who is killed.
Yes. And in the beginning, let's just say that in the beginning of the movie, there's like this little dog that would be sniffing in the garden.
Yes. Jeff also convinces his caregiver that something is up. Yeah. There's this great scene I love. It's late at night, and the caregiver, his girlfriend, played by Grace Kelly, and Jeff are looking out the window, and the caregiver goes to dig up the garden that the dog was killed by, and Grace Kelly goes to be the lookout. She ends up sneaking into Thorwald's house when he's gone, but then Thorwald comes back as she's there.
Right.
And they get into kind of a fight.
They do.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, you mean with her and Thorwald?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm like, I thought, wow, it's crazy. How did she end up being wrestled to the ground by Thorwald? Because he caught her in his house.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and you hear her yelling. She's like, Jeff.
Well, and Thorwald's crazy.
He is crazy.
And that was a dumb move of her to do that.
That is a dumb move, and no wonder she got arrested.
Having said that, she's also running on adrenaline.
Right.
She thinks that this guy might be a killer, and she wants to help her boyfriend.
And he's like, what are we gonna do? Stella, what are we gonna do? Stella's his nurse.
Yes.
He's like, Stella, what are we gonna do? And they can't do anything because he's in a wheelchair, and she is his nurse. She can't leave him, and eventually they're able to get to her, but she was arrested. And then he shows up at Jeff's house.
Okay, if we're gonna give away the movie, we should say.
But anyway, I don't want to go too far into it because you.
All right, we'll leave it up to that point, but we'll say their plan of action was Stella took some money to bail Grace Kelly out of prison. The guy knocks on the door, and you're gonna have to see the movie to see what happens.
Right.
I always have this debate in my head, Alana. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between a film that is dated and a film that is a reflection of its time? And to me, a film that is a reflection of its time, there's certain things that aren't going to happen, but you get a sense of what that time period was like, and there are certain themes that still resonate today. And in some ways, I actually believe Rear Window is a more relevant film right now than it was when it came out in the 50s.
Is it because everybody's inside right now, or is it because...
No, that's actually a good observation, but I wasn't even thinking about it.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I know what you're talking about, because we were talking about this earlier, about people having this obsession with other people's lives, and they want to peer on social media, especially. They want to peer into people's lives. They want to see what everybody's doing.
But also, people are leaving their social windows open, if you will.
For sure.
By letting people peer into their lives.
Right. That's why I am not on social media.
I think if this film, I don't even think they would need to do a remake. I think if this film was released today, because it's still a beautiful picture.
It's really good.
It would do really well, I think. What do you think about that?
I think it would.
Yeah.
I think it would. I think our generation and younger would have a greater appreciation, because this was made back in the 50s.
1954 is when it came out.
Right. This is also, I guess this is worth noting, before Grace Kelly became Princess Grace of Monaco.
Correct.
Yeah. I think it would be very well appreciated, honestly, because it really is kind of a poignant thing that we don't really think about until we look at it from another person's point of view that actually has to stay inside and look at everything through his window.
This is a film that I think young people should watch, and I think they would resonate with it a lot.
It's very poignant, I think.
You like this film too, it sounds like.
I do. It really makes you think.
But you liked Harvey more of this film.
I like them both, actually. But Harvey,
Harvey's sweeter.
It's a sweeter film, but I like this because not only is it funny, because Rear Window is funny, there's some funny parts to it, but it also really makes you think about our culture's obsession with people's lives. The good thing about this film, though, is that they really do find out that this guy is nuts and he killed his wife.
Yeah.
And had Jeff not been so prying, as far as, like, we had to figure this out, then he might have killed somebody else.
Or he just might have gotten away with it.
He might have killed somebody else besides his wife.
I don't think he would have. I think he would have just gotten away with it.
He would have gotten away with it, and people shouldn't get away with those things.
No.
Yeah. So I think it was kind of interesting.
It inspired an interesting idea from the two of us about it might be fun, not next weekend because it's our anniversary, but in a future weekend, maybe in a couple weeks, to do a Jimmy Stewart / Alfred Hitchcock night.
Oh, yeah.
And what we were thinking was start off with The Philadelphia Story, which is the film that won Stewart his Oscar.
And when did that come out?
I believe 39 or 40.
Wow, that's old.
Yep. And then we would go into Vertigo, which was a collaboration between Stewart and Hitchcock. The following night we would do North by Northwest, and then close off the weekend with To Catch a Thief, which I believe stars Cary Grant and Grace Kelly.
And I haven't seen anything with Cary Grant. I just heard that he was an excellent actor.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of those 4 movies, so I think it would be an interesting experience for both of us.
Yeah, yeah. But there's something really, really cool about old movies. Mm-hmm. And you're all right, though. The time seems to be much different than our, how the pace is.
Yeah, it's much slower. Mm-hmm. I don't like the quarantine, but one of the things that is kind of nice about it is it gives me a chance to explore older films that I haven't seen before.
Would you say that after this is all over, that you would still want to watch older stuff and explore? I think so too.
Yes. Now, I mean, I'm not going to do it as much as I have been doing it, but because I'm a huge fan of films, and I've watched a lot of older films before the quarantine happened. But I've kind of gotten away from that, and it's not that I haven't appreciated older films, but it's been one of those things to where I was telling myself I'm going to make the time to watch more, and I just didn't do it. So I think when this is all over, I'm going to have to set aside a couple of days a month to just watch older films that I have not seen before.
Right.
It might only be 1 or 2 days a month where I binge like 3 or 4 films by myself, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a concerted effort to do that. What about you?
Possibly.
We're also doing these movie nights, which
We are.
I hope has been fun for you in education.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, you're more into film than I am, but I will say that you've introduced me to a world of film that I didn't even know about.
Yeah, and I can also pontificate about films, and this actor did this, and the relationship with her co-star was bad during the making of it, and
Right.
That led into this performance, and that's how this affects this thing that happens. Yeah.
But I think that we have definitely scored as far as the films that we picked for this week.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I was really, really happy that you liked Ever After, because that's one of my favorite movies.
Oh my God, you knocked it out of the park, babe.
It was so good. Yeah, I mean, and so Drew Barrymore. Kind of a little side note here.
Go ahead.
Drew Barrymore was on. I forgot what show she was on, and she was talking about what she wanted her daughter to see, because she got married and had a daughter, and she said that one of the movies that she wanted her daughter to see was Ever After, and I'm like, that's such a good choice.
I could see that.
That is such a good choice, yeah. How she wins in the end and how she does it, and she had a backbone, that girl.
She did.
She did, and I was really, really, really happy.
I like films where the female has a backbone.
Yes.
So
It's an attractive quality for males and females.
here's a question about Rear Window.
Yeah.
Did Grace Kelly have a backbone in that movie? I have a theory. I have a theory about this.
I don't know that she did.
Here's my theory.
But
She did, but she needed that situation to show her that she had a backbone. So,
how do you say?
okay, I think because she loves Jeff, and she goes into the guy's apartment, and granted, she knows that he's not home yet, but she's also aware of the fact that he could walk in the door at any time, right? At the end. And, I don't want to give away the ending for people who haven't seen it, so I won't say anything about the ending. I think that situation makes her character stronger, and I think it makes her defend her positions in a deeper way and fight for what she wants. Not that she didn't do it already, but she fought for these superficial things, like to have the best makeup, to eat at the best restaurant. But now she's going to advocate for what she really needs in life, whether that's
Well, and I think it's really interesting, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had an idea.
Tell me.
I think it's interesting too because Jeff in the beginning was kind of trying to figure out if he really wanted to marry. Her character's name was Lisa.
Okay.
If he really wanted to marry her, and she knew that she loved him, and she wanted him to commit to her, but he wasn't sure if they would be good together.
Yeah, and she was fighting for him, but she was doing it in a superficial way.
Yeah, she was doing it for all the wrong reasons.
But you'll notice these little things leading up to the apartment break-in. For example, the one that stands out, if you remember the first night when she's over, he starts to tell her what the life of being a photographer is really like.
Right.
And he mentions, you can only have one suitcase.
Yep.
That's all you have.
Yep.
And a couple nights later, she comes over and she's packed one suitcase. It's a small detail. But when taken into the greater picture, I think it shows that this experience has changed her for the better. She's going to fight for more things than just, I want to eat at this fancy restaurant.
Right. Yep.
I think this is the only film I've ever seen with her, but she's amazing in the film.
She is. She's very good.
Yes.
She's very good. And how intrigued she was about the whole case with Mr. Thorwald. Once she realized, wait, there's something wrong with that guy.
Right.
We have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was kind of interesting how she got caught up in that.
We could always play what ifs, but I do wonder if she was alive today, what type of films would she be making? Not, the 90 or version of her, but if she was in her 20s today, what choices would she be making? But we'll never know.
Here's a side note that we were talking about earlier about how old the women and men seemed back then in the 50s and even in the 40s because of, a lot of them have been through the Great Depression and they had to be tough and they had to use whatever resources they had because they didn't have a lot.
Right.
And I thought even Myrtle May and Harvey seemed older. Older. She seemed too old to be living with her mother.
Yeah.
But she was a young woman in that time. I just think it's interesting.
But they were trying to get her a man as quickly as possible.
Right,
That's
right.
one of the subplots of it.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. People that generation had to be tougher than we are. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. We are in some ways, and don't take this the wrong way when I say it this way.
Tell me.
In some ways, compared to our grandparents and our parents' generation, we're a bunch of weaklings compared to them.
I would advocate for your position. I think that's true.
We are.
We're better off, but better off doesn't necessarily mean we're tougher than they
We're not equipped.
No.
We are not equipped to handle what they handled. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that we can't be tougher.
No.
We just have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I think.
That's great.
Yes.
One of the great things about watching these films is we're learning so much about history. Mm-hmm. And it sounds crazy to say that because you should really pick up some books. But if we're gonna watch films, then why not watch something that's going to give us more of an insight into the past?
Yeah. So I told you about my U.S. history class that I took my junior year. Mm-hmm. And we based our learning on films and notes that the teacher wrote. And I was surprised that he didn't show like a Rear Window.
Yeah, that's in retrospect, though.
In retrospect.
So,
I mean, now that I've seen it now.
What year did you take this class?
I took this class in 1990. Wait, let me think. Between 1997 and 1998. So.
Okay, this is going to sound like an odd statement, but follow me here.
Okay.
The film Rear Window is very, very, very relevant to what's going on in our culture today. I think in the late 90s, it would have seemed like a good film, but not necessarily culturally important. And I'll explain why. In the early 2000s, we had the rise of reality television.
Yes.
Then we get a little bit later on, we have the rise of social media.
Right.
And I think those two things make Rear Window a special film to watch in these times. So it's not that it wasn't a classic back in the 90s, but it's more harder to contextualize than it is today.
Well, I kind of get your point. Mm-hmm. I mean, we did watch The Graduate, and that was a classic.
I love The Graduate.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure why we watched The Graduate. We watch other movies too, like Jeremiah Johnson, Little Big Man.
I can see why you watched The Graduate. It has a lot to do with coming of age during the Vietnam War, and I believe it came out in '67, The Summer of Love. Yeah,
we also watched The Alamo, and I can't remember it. I don't think that wasn't like one of my favorite movies to watch.
I would not have showed you The Alamo if I was your teacher.
But The Alamo, it was. I don't. Why, have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I've heard about it though, and I've heard that it's historically inaccurate. It was a crazy film. If you ever have read anything about the shooting of it, that's the one with John Wayne, right?
I believe so.
And I believe that's the only film that he directed. They went way out of budget. He had issues with John Ford because Ford was this famous director who gave John Wayne his start, and Ford goes to see the making of the film and says that, Wayne, you're doing this all wrong. So John Wayne hires him as a secondary director to shoot like some battle scene footage. There's some crazy. It's an interesting story about the making of the film that I'm not doing justice of, but I don't think it's historically accurate.
And I've only seen it once. It wasn't like my favorite film to watch. We also watched The Grapes of Wrath.
I've heard that that's really good.
It is. And we watched Hawaii, the movie Hawaii that you haven't seen with Julie Andrews.
If I were to teach a U.S. history class and show films, I would have to throw in some documentaries.
Right, but this is back in 1997.
They had documentaries
1998. No, I know that, but back then it was different, and you weren't my teacher, so.
That's true.
And I'm glad you weren't.
Oh.
That would be a little bit awkward.
Well, I would have shown you some good movies, though.
Yeah, but I'm glad you weren't.
Yes.
It wouldn't have been a good idea.
Uh-oh. Because then I'd be sweeping with a student.
Oh,
Okay.
oh my goodness.
Anyways, J-Lo. I'm excited to watch films next weekend.
Yes.
I think we should do our Jimmy Stewart's / Alfred Hitchcock weekend in 2 weeks.
I think you're right.
Because it's on our forefront.
Right.
But next week we're going to watch some great films. I'm going to show you Pumpkin, finally, and A Fist Called Wanda, finally. And you're going to show me...
Wait a minute. Oh, yes. I wanted to show you Now and Then.
Mm-hmm.
Now and Then is a coming-of-age movie with Christina Ricci, and I thought it was fantastic. It's really fun. It's more of a girls' movie, but I think you would enjoy it. And then there's another one I'm thinking about showing you on Saturday called He's Just Not That Into You, which is based on a book. I haven't read the book, but I thought the movie was fun, and kind of explores the lives of 4 women.
Fun time will be had by all.
Right. I think those are the ideas that we had. So.
And then our fun weekend of classic films the following weekend.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right. Is there anything else you wanted to say, J-Lo, before we wrap up?
Our rigatoni was really good last night, wasn't it?
It was really
Did we talk about that?
We did at the very beginning.
We did, but I just wanted to reiterate that even as I did heat the leftovers up on the stove, it just turned out so good. It tasted really good, like the day after. So you just...
I usually don't like the way regular pasta tastes the next day. With some exceptions, like when I do the baked spaghetti, it tastes great.
I think a lot of pastas taste good.
I'm talking about the next day.
Right. That's what I mean.
I don't always feel that way.
There
are exceptions, but
I think spaghetti tastes good too the next day.
It tastes okay. It's much better when you get it right off the stovetop.
Right.
But we can disagree. We live in America, buddy.
Well, wait a minute. I heated the thing on the desktop.
No, I said you didn't let me finish my statement.
Okay.
But this tasted really good.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta let me finish talking, babe. I love you. Can I get a kiss?
No.
Come on.
Okay.
Okay. Come here, you.
All right.
Is there any? I finished my Jessica Savage book, so that's the thing I have to say.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you? I'll just say this. Were you surprised at the ending?
No, I knew she died at the end.
Okay.
It was good though.
Yeah, it was good. Okay.
Yes. What about you? Is there anything else you want to say to the people before we wrap this up?
I'm looking forward to next weekend. It's going to be a special one, and none of you are invited.
That's right.
Sorry. It's just not going to happen. But I'm sure we will give you the highlights, whoever is listening.
For sure.
For sure. Or, things leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, J-Lo, or are we good?
I think we are good.
I think, I should probably leave sometime soon, but why don't we end this and we'll eat some chocolate and then I'll pack up.
Yes.
I'll give you some privacy and then I'll be back in a day or two.
That's right.
Maybe we'll do some kissing before I leave.
All right.
All right. Till next time, y'all.
Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.